Hey friends, it's Rachel
and Shira. Welcome to our Zoom Out podcast.
We're two close friends who love having honest, vulnerable conversations about life, healing, and all the messy, beautiful parts of being human.
We definitely don't have all the answers, but we have a deep desire to see life from a wider lens.
We're here to ask questions, share our stories along the way, be real with each other and with you.
So if you've ever felt like there's a bigger picture you're not always seeing, you're not alone.
Let's zoom out
together. Hey everyone.
We are so excited to talk today about effective communication. I think that in this world today, we have so many tools disposed at our fingertips. We talk a lot about like healing and childhood trauma and all these things. But Shira and I really just want to focus on how we can better our relationship with ourselves and other people, right? That's the point of zooming out. It's the point of why we exist in the first place. Mm-hmm. And last week we talked about defining listening, but we were talking about communication, and this effective communication is really kind of that other part.
Yeah, it's like a two-part.
It's a little two-parter.
But so what is effective communication?
Well, maybe we start off with even like what is regular communication, right? Just so that we can like distinctify.
So last week we spoke about listening, right? And we said that there's two parts to listening to yourself, listening to others, and that listening is not hearing. Listening is about breaking down the ego, being vulnerable, and just truly listening, like listening to the other person. And this week we're talking about communication. So regular communication is just you feel something, you say something.
Yeah. And it can
say something.
And it could be in the form of yelling or crying or just kind of telling someone off,
then you're like, wait, but I told them how I feel.
Yeah.
So like, why didn't it get fixed?
There's a reason. But no, I mean, it could also, like, communication could be anything, right? You could just be yelling at someone that counts as communication. But the whole point of effective communication is how to really deepen our relationships.
Yeah.
And better understand each other, right?
Right. And I can give like an example. When I feel hurt, I shut down. Like, I just shut down. I want people to approach me and to talk to me. Like, I've had this so many times with my dad. Me and my father were very similar, so we would like butt heads a lot when I was growing up. And a lot of times, like, I would feel hurt or something, and instead of going to him and saying, "Hi, Abba, listen, like this hurt me."
Abba means a dad in Hebrew. Just like, for all our listeners,
be like vulnerable, like this hurt me, and like approach him in a kind, genuine way. I would shut down or cry or just like lock myself in my room. And when he would try to talk to me, I would push him away, even though deep down I knew that I wanted to speak to him and to explain to him. I just like wasn't able to. I would just shut down. And I really learned that things penetrate to other people when you approach in a vulnerable way, when you approach in an open way, and not like with this wall of just
ego.
Yes. Yeah. The shutting down comes from ego. And like, I'm hurt and I'm this, and like, you need to do everything you can to try to make it up to me kind of thing. But communication goes both ways, and communication is two people, and it's not just you. So like, the whole point of communication is that you need to be able to communicate in a way that the person will actually hear you. Again, listen to you, going back to listening. So I learned that being soft, being vulnerable, and it's proven. It's been like, I've seen it with my own two eyes, that when I go to my father and I tell him like, Abba, Dad, this hurt me, whatever, he listens to me, and we're able to like move past it, as opposed to the other crazy way.
I think you're saying two great points that I want to point out. Is that part of effective communication is it's asking yourself, like, what is the intention behind communicating? Because if Shira just wanted to yell at her dad, that's one way to do it. But if you genuinely had the intention where you're like, okay, I want to feel heard and I want to deepen my relationship with my dad, what is my intention here? And I think a lot of times we skip that part in communication. That's why I think we're putting such an emphasis on effective communication, because you can also call it intentional communication, right? Like when you are intentional about what the goal is at the end of this conversation, you 9 out of 10 times, you're not coming in hot-headed and yelling at the other person. If your intention is to genuinely connect with the other person and have a deeper relationship and become closer, you are not coming in yelling at them, but you're coming in a much softer, more vulnerable place, like Shira was saying. I also think the second point you made that was really good and part of effective communication is that you need to ask yourself, like, let's say you listen to yourself, right? Talking about listening, you listen to yourself, you see that you need to talk to your dad or to your friend about something that hurt you. You need to ask yourself before you go into that conversation, in order to effectively communicate with this person, whatever I want to say, how can I say it to this person in a way that they're going to receive it? Because like what Shira said, which is so good, communication is a two-way street, and you can communicate all day long and yell at a person. But if your goal, right, the first part, if your intention is to become closer, you need to figure out,
have them listen,
and to actually have them listen and understand where you're coming from. The way in order to do that is to really ask yourselves, like, okay, like in what way can I communicate where this person's going to receive it? And let me tell you, that's going to look different in every single situation with every single relationship. Like Shira with your dad, like that's going to look different than probably how you're going to want to effectively communicate with a sibling or with a friend, because every person has their own love language. Every person has their own way of receiving information correctly. And it's funny because I can also share that I actually recently, probably a few months ago or so, in the last year, I had a conflict with a friend where I don't even know if she realized I was hurt in the moment. And it was just a few moments of not the nicest comments to my direction that I took very, that I was very sensitive about, and I took really hard. And I really, it really rubbed me the wrong way, and I was really upset about it, and I was judging her, and I was really frustrated. And it took me, I'm not even kidding you, a whole week to sit on my feelings, because I said to myself, if I want to talk to this person with the intention of deepening our relationship and being vulnerable and opening up why I feel how I feel, I cannot say it while I'm still fresh and hot-headed and frustrated. So I literally took a whole week to sit on my feelings, processing it every single day, thinking of it, a lot of time throughout the day. Thank you. And I'm thanking myself. And what ended up happening was I was really scared also, because I think, as Shira and I say, we're not the most natural, vulnerable people, but we know that is what's going to increase the quality of our lives and in our relationships, which is everything. So I remember literally for a week sitting on those feelings. And then, obviously I came in way more calm, and I said to myself, my intention here is I just want to feel heard. But more than that, I want us to deepen our relationship. And I remember, and it was an in-person conversation. I remember, going up to her and saying, hey, can I talk to you about something? She's like, yeah. And she had no idea what I was about to say. When I communicated my feelings, and I just said something listen, I know you probably didn't mean anything. And I know there was no ill intention, but I want to tell you, I felt really hurt by these words and what you said here and what you said that. It made me feel this way. It made me feel uncommunicated with and unseen. And I was just sharing my feelings. And because I'm not even kidding, by the way, this is how you're vulnerable, at least for me. As soon as I started talking, because this was a really just vulnerable thing for me to do, I started crying. Immediately the first sentence that came out of my mouth, I started crying. And I think that also really helped her to see oh shoot, okay, she something's happening here. I think it really allowed,
it was real and vulnerable.
It was so real and raw and vulnerable and honest. And I think that really just me crying, not that I did it on purpose, it literally just came out, but I do think her seeing me cry like that, because I was so vulnerable, it really helped, even if she had it or not, it helped her break her own walls down to be able to hear what I was saying to her. Because we were saying this before, it is hard to have someone come up to you and say, hey, I really didn't like the way you said this or what you did to me here. It's not fun to hear that you're not being the best friend or a good daughter or a good sibling, But for me, that was like a huge thing. And I really do tell people that story just to show like vulnerability changes everything, because I truly believe that if I had that conversation with her when it happened and I was really hot headed and I was like wanted to yell, it would have been 10 times worse. We would have probably had to have many vulnerable conversations to like fix that wound, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And it's all about just putting yourself in that position to be heard and listened to.
But you know what's also something I want to add is like sometimes you can help others. And by the way, I'm not saying you need to change others and you can't do people's work for them. Like only each person can do their own internal work. You really can't do someone's internal work for them. But I'll tell you that in a different scenario, like in my family, for example, I very much played the therapist role at a lot of times, and they all like have commented on it and make fun of me, in a good way, you know, all fun. And I tell people like if you don't know who the therapist in your family is, it's probably you. But for me, there's been like many times, because this is like we're talking about in situations where it's me and another person or Shira and another person to effectively communicate. But something that I've learned on my journey is also like kind of creating a safe space for other people to effectively communicate. And again, you can't do people's work for them, but I think family is a little bit different. So there's been many times in my mom's kitchen, my mom and one of my brothers, they live together. So they're roommates, and you know, a mother-son relationship already, like any family relationship, you're going to have a lot of stuff in it and wounds and childhood and blah, blah, blah. And there's been many times where they both walk away frustrated because they don't really hear each other, and I'm like literally in the middle seeing like the 5 love language books. It's like I literally see both of them talking in each of their languages but not each other's,
Right.
and they're both walking away frustrated, and I'm like, wait, like you guys need to talk in each other's. And obviously I can't force them, but they were obviously open to it. And there were a lot of times in my mom's kitchen where it was just the 3 of us and me like literally playing the therapist role, like, okay, wait, like listen to what he has to say, and why do you feel that way, and then okay, but listen to what she's saying and how she feels, and just helping each of them like see each other's perspectives. And it was awesome. Like it really, each time it really ended up in this like cute little group hug in the middle of a kitchen.
That's so nice. Yeah, I really think you need to listen in order to be listened to, kind of like they go hand in hand. Like when you listen to yourself, to others, that's the way you'll be able to effectively communicate, because you're understanding how they need to be told things, how they need to be listened to, how you need to be told things, how you need to be listened to. And we spoke about the 5 languages last week, and I feel like it's so important to know like what you need from others. Like, and we talk about like the reverse, like what your love language is, the opposite is how
is like your trauma response. It's like your bad habit
response.
It's kind of like, you know how we all like subconsciously go through life, we do certain habits, we do certain things, and we're not even conscious of it. That's why it's subconscious. Like we don't even know. It's kind of just like knee-jerk reactions. What I love what you're saying is like there's this idea out there that your trauma response is the opposite of your love language.
Right. So if you're like, for me, like I said, words of affirmation, like my trauma response is to shut down, to not speak.
Why are we the same person?
I know.
It's crazy.
But, and I've seen it, like I've mentioned with my father, but I've seen it also with my friends. Like with my friends, I won't go as crazy and like cry and shut the door or whatever. Like,
family is so different, you know. What you feel comfortable with your parents.
My family, I feel comfortable. I just go crazy.
Just yell at them. No,
So with my friends, I would just like become distant and like close myself off, and I like miss that opportunity to just be like, hey, like this hurt me. Like I mentioned last week about like the medical thing. I went through a surgery, and when I told my friends, they didn't respond
like the way you wanted.
Yeah, I guess. Or kindly, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in that moment, I had the choice to say how I feel. Instead, I just shut down, distance myself. But just to see how like effective communication is so important for yourself, because it allows you to let go. Again, we always talk about letting go and not to hold resentment towards people. And like at the end of the day, even if they don't take it how you want them to take it, at least you tried.
And you're doing what you need. Like, for example, you can come in. Sometimes this does happen, right? Because we're talking about, I do want to address this. Like, we do talk about how being vulnerable breaks down walls and allows someone else to accept, really listen. But sometimes, because you can't do other people's work for them, you could still be vulnerable. You could still be crying, and someone will still not listen to you the way they need.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is a reflection of them and their current process and not you. Like, that's also something we're saying. Like, we're not guaranteeing results. I'm not saying that if you're so vulnerable with your friends, then they're going to accept you and love you. And sometimes that doesn't happen, but it's more about, like, do you want to live your life? No. Do you want to live your life in a way that you're proud of it, no matter what the outcome is, no matter what the other person says about it, no matter what the situation is? Like, I want to know that I did my best to be my softest version of myself, whether or not the other person, whoever they may be, a mother, a sibling, a friend, a boyfriend, whoever, girlfriend, I want to be the softest version of myself, no matter what the outcome is, no matter what the other person is going to say about it or accept.
Right.
And I think that's also a huge part of, like, this work that we're talking about, just the internal work, is it's not about outcomes and it's not about other people accepting us. It's about us doing what we need to do in order to accept ourselves and to love ourselves more.
And I remember in that moment of when I was going through that, I had my surgery and they didn't respond the way I wanted. I remember speaking to Rachel and asking her, like, is it even worth it to communicate? Because at this point, like, this same sort of situation has happened so many times and I haven't communicated my feelings. And I'm like, is it even worth it to, like, maybe it's just better to just distance? And Rachel, like, said, like, it's always worth it and it's never too late to communicate.
Because it's also for you.
It's such a good point and it's true. But then it also sparked the conversation of, like, how communication is, the way you effectively communicate with different people is going to look different.
Yeah.
And sometimes not communicating is communicating.
Is effectively
communicating. Maybe not in that situation, but I could give you an example of another situation where not communicating was at the end, the answer. With my toxic friendship that I mentioned before. Yeah, I don't know if whatever.
It's all learning lessons, just an unhealthy. We could say unhealthy relationship.
Yes, I like that word better. The unhealthy relationship I was in, we would constantly communicate. We would always communicate about, like, what's going wrong, what's this, like, why are we like this? And it became like a cycle of, like, communicating, coming to some sort of resolution, falling back again, communicating, and it became too much to the point. Also, I said this in my graduation speech once.
Tell us.
My father always, like, remembers, like, remember when you were valedictorian in 5th grade? And you said it? But, like, with salt, right?
I do remember you being valedictorian in 5th grade. I was there.
Shout out to my 5th grade girl.
Anyways, okay, what were you saying?
So with salt, like, salt is a good thing, right? But you need it in measure, right?
Right.
Too little is not good. Too much is not good. So that's with really everything in life.
Like water even.
Water, everything.
They say if you drink, like, too much water, someone could die.
Yeah.
It's like balance.
You need it in measurements. And the same thing is with communication. Like, sometimes not communicating is the most communication you could do. So then at one point I had to put my foot down and I was like, that's it. Like, we're in this cycle. We need to just cut this off because it's just getting too much salt, like, too salty. But and that was when, like, really, like, cut off everything. And then, like, in, like, a couple years later, we were able to, like, meet again and, like, have an open, honest communication. And it was really a full circle moment because you see how much healthier our communication was. And yeah, it's sometimes the answer is just to stop.
I think you're bringing up a good point in just the sense that effective communication, like anything, is going to look different on everyone.
Is that the word? Multifaceted?
Yeah. Like, it's going to look different based on the situation, based on the relationship, like because what we're saying, right? You can be as vulnerable as possible and as open as possible, but the other person also needs to be in a place where they can receive that and add to it and listen to it. Like, I can tell you, for me, I speak a lot about my relationship with my mom because it's so much just experience and so much healing that was in those few years really of doing that work. But there were so many difficult conversations that I felt every single time I came in 5% more vulnerable, 5% more vulnerable, which 5% doesn't sound like a lot, but it was a lot to, compounding on top of each other. And I remember I would just kind of walk away from each of those conversations, like not feeling the most heard. And, kind of like what Shira was saying, like asking myself, like, is there even a point to keep going? Is there even a point to keep communicating? But I said to myself, like, that's who I want to be. I want to be someone who, continues to be vulnerable. And it really was until I was 100% vulnerable. That was like the big turning point for my mom and I just remember this conversation we had where I was like, just so like, there was not even a brick on my wall up. Like, everything was so just down and open.
Ego was out the door.
Ego was out the door. Ego, who is she? I don't know. And literally, I just remember just with so much like pain, but also vulnerability mixed in, just at this point of like, I don't know what to do here. And I remember that was the turning point for my mom and I's relationship, of her just being like, okay, like, but I want to meet you there, like, don't give up on me. Let's do this together. And it was such a beautiful, and again, we're going to talk about relationships because I really think there's so much to talk about. That makes me
so emotional because like someone saying don't give up on me, like that's how we all feel. You just don't want to be given up on.
I think it truly, I know it was the most like real and raw and honest conversation I had with my mom. And that moment of me just being like, I don't know what to do, and she's like, don't give up on me, it's like I really felt like we finally met each other. Right. And that was like, I definitely choose that moment as the moment where everything turned around for us, which I'm so beyond happy and proud of myself. But my point is like, whether or not my mom would chose to say those things or, to be ready to do the work together, I still wanted and needed to be that vulnerable, and to like break myself down, because no matter what happened, I want to walk away at the end of the day knowing that I did my best and I did my most. And sometimes it does look like the other person meeting you there, and sometimes it doesn't, you know, like not everybody, sometimes like people can't meet you where they haven't met themselves.
Right.
And I think that's also
and there's no one recipe for everything.
Exactly.
All these topics that we're going to be talking about, like, we're all different. We all have different kinds of relationships with different kinds of people. And yeah, the way we communicate and the way we, going back, seeing other people's inner child is, seeing our inner child is going to look different for everyone.
And it's just funny what you said, because I wanted to, we really are the same person, Shira and I. Like, my love language is also words of affirmation. I really remember growing up, every time I would get hurt, I would literally run to my room. I would cry by myself.
And you want someone to knock on the door.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
Like,
I want someone chasing after me.
Footsteps at the door. You're like, when are they going to come for me?
You're like, I'm crying in my pillow, but like, hello, come in.
And then when they come, you're like, no, get out.
Yeah. And then you're like, no. Exactly. But no, I just remember it's like really recognizing our own trauma responses, because for me, that shutting down and not being able to express myself was in it of itself all the work that I've been working on, and that I think really brings us here to this podcast of like, Shira and I don't think we could have, I know we couldn't have done this a year ago, just who we were at that time. I think it really was us processing so much in our lives and continuing to heal and doing that inner work that really brought us here to be able to share that with other people, because this is scary, like this is vulnerable. It's scary.
Sometimes I think back to things I say and I'm like, oh God.
You're like, I shared that. But that's the whole point of why we're here. We're all human and we're all just trying to effectively communicate. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, best part of how we end every episode. First of all, thank you all for listening. Just to wrap it up, again, just a huge reminder, disclaimer, effective communication. Sometimes people are not always going to meet you there. And it really is just about asking yourself, because at the end of the day, we can only control us and our reactions to life. So I think it's just the two questions we said in the beginning is, what is my intention in this conversation, like going into this conversation? And whatever I'm about to say, how can I say it in the way that this other person is going to receive it in the best way?
Yeah.
I think that if you are asking yourself those, that sums it up. If you're asking yourself those questions, you're already winning. Okay, so the quote of the day is this, and it is by Leo Christopher. Vulnerability is the essence of connection, and the connection is the essence of existence. So one more time. Vulnerability is the essence of connection, and the connection is the essence of existence. It is all about relationships. It is all about communicating, and it is all about breaking our ego.
Okay, guys. Question of the day. If you made the conscious choice to let go of your ego and show up more vulnerable in one relationship in your life, how would that relationship change, and what would that look and feel like?
Wow.
That's a deep one.
Yeah, say that again. That was good.
So if you make a conscious choice to let go of your ego and show up more vulnerable in one relationship in your life, think about how that relationship would change and what it would look and feel like. Wow.
Yeah, I feel like we answered it with, like, you were saying your relationship with your dad, my relationship with my mom. I mean, I think that
it's just like a good like thing to think about. Like, if I made that shift of putting my ego to the side, letting go, showing up more vulnerable, how could your relationship be better? Think about what would change, how it would shift.
Yeah, and more than that, like, how would you feel, you know? Like, as a human who struggles with vulnerability, if you started to be a little bit more vulnerable, and again, we're not saying to go from 0 to 100. Like I mentioned with my mom, it took a lot of hard, difficult conversations, and each time coming in 5% more vulnerable, 5% more vulnerable. But I have to tell you, even though I walked away from those conversations like unheard, I still felt so great about myself. I was so proud of myself, because I was doing something that I thought, you know, a little while before was impossible.
Right.
And I think that's everything. It's just about how you feel within yourself and doing that work.
Yeah, nothing is impossible.
Nothing is impossible, and it's never too late.
Never too late.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
We hope this conversation helped you feel a little bit more seen, a little less alone, and reminded you to take a step back and zoom out.
We're grateful to have you all along with us on this journey together.
Stay tuned for our next episode.
Bye, friends.